The Palace of Eternity is a book written in 1969 by Bob Shaw. It's a short space opera that jams a lot into just under 200 pages. It's got all your favorite science fiction tropes, split into 3 parts, each completely unique from the other 2. We're following Mac, an ex-military man that now lives on the planet Nemesine, which is for poets and authors and other artists. Until now, as the humans have decided to move their base of operations to the planet, and naturally this completely turns life upside down for a lot of its inhabitants. That's what's advertised as the main conflict of the novel, but to me that's not exactly where it is. I don't want to say exactly what I think it is, but because of spoilers, but it's definitely very, very, very sci-fi. Let's talk about the good of this book. It is not a boring read whatsoever. It does pretty much everything you'd expect or want out of sci-fi, and it does those things really well. The world building is colorful, and the tech is well explained, the aliens are cool, etc., etc. It moves really fast. Nothing is dwelled on for too long, but unlike some books where the characters act too spontaneously, all the action and plot developments happen, I think, at an appropriate pace, or at least one that I was comfortable with, so it doesn't seem unreasonable. The prose is really, really fast, and it's not just because this is a short book, it's just super smooth to read. To me, the second part of 3 parts in the book, it takes a bit of a step back, but I think that's reasonable for the payoff in a way that I won't spoil. Shaw is really effective at making readers feel things. A lot of times when I'm reading and the author wants me to think something about a character, I'm like, I kind of get what you're going for here, but whatever. When Shaw wants you to be scared of something, he writes it in a chilling way. When he wants you to hate someone, you really feel like you hate them. And he just does this so well. His depiction of the aliens, who are villains, it's vivid and it's haunting. And I feel like in a page or 2 of writing, he can really make you feel a certain way about whoever he wants to, except the main character, which I'll get into in a minute. The ending is so good. It's fit for a series of novels that's hundreds or 1,000 pages long, not something that's under 200 pages. It's really impressive what he manages to do to wrap up and make this really short book feel big and powerful. The last part as well has kind of a gimmick that's really fun to read. Not a gimmick in a bad way, but it just kind of adds another layer on top of the reading. Without getting into spoilers, there are plot twists that I really would not have seen coming in a million years. It's a space opera, and it tries to get a little bit ethereal and theoretical and philosophical, and that didn't land as well with me, but where it hits, it hits. The quickness of the plot, the speed of the prose, the vividness of Shaw's world building, the science fiction elements, they're all really well done. All right, let's talk about the bad. First of all, this book is dated in a way that it was something I could not ignore for the entirety of the book. The main character reads like a middle-aged man's fantasy, and I just couldn't connect with him the whole time. He's sort of a war hero with a tragic backstory. He's violently emotional. He's rich, and he's talented in his craft. He retired to a place for artists, and most frustratingly, he's in a relationship with a much younger woman. He's 49 in the book, in a relationship with someone that's 19 years old. There's even this weird exchange in it where he says that she looks at him almost like a child, or something like that. And I'm like, she's pretty much a child. That's right. He's too macho and he's too one-dimensional to really be liked by me. And the fact that we're with this character the entire book makes it a real barrier for me to say this is a fantastic book. As I mentioned a little bit earlier, there's also a really big shift between each of the 3 parts in this book. And it didn't bother me too much, but I could absolutely see some readers just feeling a ton of whiplash from the vast changes, between how these parts are written. it gets really hand-wavy and confusing in the second part of the book. And honestly, I got pretty lost. It's only one part of the book, right? But that part was definitely not for me. Okay, I got to talk about my least favorite part of the book, which is this one character who makes it a super uncomfortable read. There's this one scene where there's this girl, she's 3 years old, and she sees the main character, for a non-sexual way, she sees the main character coming out of the shower naked, and she watches him, and it says that afterwards she, quote, briefly handled his genitals. And she's 3 in this scene, and it's way too far for me, like, to the point where I wanted to stop reading. Like, there wasn't anything overtly sexual, but just the fact that the main character is comfortably being naked and touched by this 3-year-old girl is super uncomfortable to read. And I won't get into the spoilers about, like, what she's doing. There's sort of a reason, but she could have touched him, for that reason that I won't spoil, in any other place on his body, and it would have still moved the plot forward. There's also another character with, like, an asterisk next to that made me really frustrated about later in the book. Mac talks about her a lot, and she's really important. And he talks about her with extreme reverie. But he does this in a way that's so common with books from this time period. And I love books from this era, but they do it all too often, which is whenever they talk up a woman, they have to do so by making it sexual, even if that has nothing to do with the reason why they like her, or why she's powerful or important or interesting, and obsessing about her femininity and her sexual beauty. And it's just so common in this era of sci-fi. Like, they can't put a woman up on a pedestal unless it's also accompanied by talking about her as a sexual object. Okay, so I know you might be saying, this book was written in 1969. What did you expect? And I would say back to you, go ahead and enjoy this book. There's tons of beautiful prose and great sci-fi elements that I think make it a very enjoyable read. Nobody is trying to censor this or take it away from you. But I'm also reviewing this book in 2025, so I'm going to review it and take note of things that make it read a certain way today. If you can compartmentalize the good from the bad, and there's absolutely good in this book, there is great prose and wonderful sci-fi world building and elements. If you can do that, there's a lot of fun to be had in this book. And it does what many meandering books and series that take hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of pages to build up, it does what they're able to do in thousands of pages in just a couple hundred pages. So there's a lot to enjoy in this book. Still some things that annoyed me. Thanks for watching.